We are recording.
Ooh.
And here's the screen. I've been working on this a lot, and it's a bit grueling. Also, it makes me review, at least look at all my implementation, all my Nix code, and
Can you tell me how things went after I left last night? You and Roland kept exploring this idea of
yes,
hybrid modules or whatever you want to call it.
yeah, we implemented this conversion, and it's going well for me, except that it's
Sweet.
going slow. But it's picking up pace as I figure out how to work faster.
Yeah.
And now there are these things I left for for last because they seem to be like a little bit more require some thinking. But it's okay. We'll probably finish tomorrow, hopefully.
Awesome. Well, I hope you're happy with how it's going.
Yes. One thing that I think is worth sharing that I noticed is that there's this flexibility in a module, or I would phrase it this way: a module can say things about other modules. Let me. So
different types of modules, or
there's like, what's a module anyway? There's modules everywhere, but like, so I'm talking about. So there are, like all files. The idea is all files are flake part modules.
okay,
right? All Nix files are flake part modules, and then we're using this flake.modules option that is an adder set of module classes.
Yes.
Each class can have named modules, and then I will use them for NixVim modules, Home Manager modules, NixOS modules, and those what I would call the named modules. The named modules, okay. they're like not represented by files.
Okay.
By there's no single file that represents. There might be like incidentally or maybe frequently that only a single Nix file kind of makes changes, declares values in a certain named module.
Okay.
But I think those names in the named modules are like a shared map, a shared knowledge between all of these different flake part modules.
Okay.
For example, let's say that I have a flake part module that declares that adds a NixOS configuration.
Mm-hmm.
Adds a NixOS configuration, so it would set something like flake.nixOS configurations dot some name, like let's say I have a desktop I call foobar That's my
Hmm.
desktop. Um, so it equals lib.nixos system, and in the outer set argument to that, there will be modules equals.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to, now one of those modules, or maybe the only thing there possibly, would be config dot flake dot modules dot nixos dot foobar, or like if you want to namespace it, something like configs foobar,
Okay.
because it's like the module that represent, right? Or I'm not sure. It seems like all the separator characters, the typical ones, are taken, because you can't use dot because dot notation is the other attribute access. You can't use slash because that's for files, and it maybe slash is the correct one, but I think most of these don't work in the REPL completion. They kind of break your completion at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
So maybe you call it configs slash foobar. Now, in
Hmm.
any other flakepart module, that name would be well known, and you could say uh, something about it. You could add to that module. You could add more modules to merge with that module. Does that make sense?
Like using imports.
No, like let's say you wanted to say um,
Like defining another Flake module and another file that also.
well, first you have to put something in it so it doesn't just tell you, wait, I don't have that module, right?
Hmm.
At all. So let's say you make one, and you call it uh, by its own name, so it represents it, kind of.
Hmm.
It has to at least one, but and then you want to say something about it, like I'm trying to figure out a realistic example. Like, let's say you have some configurations for which you have different security. So you use something that has to do with the firewall or SSH, or like, let's say you want to like disable SSH on this,
Okay.
while otherwise you have SSH and a SSHD enabled. So you can, in any flake-part module, you can go flake dot modules dot config slash foobar dot SHD, or services SHD enable false.
Hmm.
So that's one thing you can do. Like,
Okay.
you can talk about, you can add on to, like, to modules, to by their name in that name. Add to them.
Okay.
Another thing you can do is you can import them. You can import modules. You can say you can create modules, and you can, from a different module, you can say, I would like to, like, this is a behavior. This is a thing. I declare, uh, you know, some behavior. So in one flake part module, you'll say flake.modules.nixos.behavior equals blah blah blah.
Hmm.
Like, this computer is a computer where my wife uses it,
Yeah.
and then everything that has to do with it. And then in modules that have to do with specific, like, let's say, configs, NixOS configs, I could import that module, that add it to the list of for evaluation for that config, for that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a two-way relationship. There's always this, at least this two ways of doing things. Like, do you name a behavior and then treat it as its own thing and import it in somewhere else?
I see.
Or do you speak of other things?
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So you've got like two tools in your belt, and you're not sure when you want to use one versus the other. And I have no advice for you because you're exploring a pattern I only even started thinking about last night because I'd never even seen it before. So yeah,
Well,
keep me posted. I'd like to learn.
I think I think the value I'm trying to add here is to identify, like, to think of it this way,
Hmm.
and then it's it's an arbitrary choice for every single piece of, I don't know, thing, right? Everything here is very arbitrary, and I think the fact that we are serving ourselves only makes it the most difficult challenge,
Hmm.
because we could make the biggest mess and it'll still serve us, and because we don't have any guarantee towards ourselves that is clear.
Hmm.
I'm speaking of myself. I can break any API because I have full control.
Yep.
So what's my guarantee towards mess? So how do I arrange my code is the most arbitrary thing,
Yep.
and therefore
Yep.
I have the most freedom. It's like this FPV. I like Jacek said, it has too many degrees of freedom.
Yeah. Well, I do agree. My personal Flake has been the messiest project of my life before I even got into Nix. Even more messy. Although probably not messier than it's ever been because Nix, like all things, right? Humanity achieves. You discover a wonderful tool for managing complexity, and then you reach so much further and do so much more shit than you used to do, and now you're buried in just as much complexity, if not more. And you're doing a lot more things. Like, I'm managing so many more computers than I ever could have managed before. But my life is also, a mess because I have all these computers I feel like I have control over. So, or not my life, but my personal life is also, you know, conform to all those things I want to do. So, like, you get these superpowers, right? You're Superman, but Superman's still a stressed guy. He has superpowers. But anyways, that's my analogy.
All right, uh, take it.
All right.
Take the helm.
Okay. We are after T. Oh, bam. Screen. Here we go. Start a timer. Mob start. Oh, that did something. Run API. Oh, does it tell
Util.
us util run API? There we go. Alrighty. Yep. Server started. Wonderful. All right. And I think we were just working our way down the list. So we did unless you remember.
Oh,
So
there's the
we can
version
just,
to do there.
yeah. So do we
That's
want to tie
easy.
that to the release of our project, or do we want to version the API separately by hand? Because they kind of are two separate things if you were to like put on your academically correct hat, right? And what's a breaking change for users of our software? I mean, there's like users of our software who are the people who are deploying the PR tracker, and they're the users of the deployed instances. And
This is the version of the software, I'm pretty sure.
I am fine with just calling it that. Okay, cargo, there's probably some environment variable or something.
Just change the suffix.
Version. Yep, major, minor, pre, whatever. All right, env bang, boom, 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 boom. Whoa,
What happened there?
it just
Okay.
collapsed. That's just our auto formatter for you. Not sure why. Seems like a quite long line, but I think this looks longer than it is because of the
There
actual
was a
text.
to do there. There was a comment.
Got it. I'm not. I'm also just not used to having this feature turned on, this like hint text or whatever. So I'm not used to lines being longer than they actually are. Um,
Hmm.
that's weirding me out a little. All right. So that's that. Let's open it up. And slash doc slash API. Nice. And flag. There it is.
But that's
One
out of
auto.
date.
I
It does
gotta
not.
restart it. Here we go. 6.1.0. Beautiful.
Ooh,
Okay, to do. Figure out best paths. How do you want to figure this out?
well, one at a time. Which ones do
Okay.
we?
Doc slash Wega.
Did I? I lost your screen's frozen for me. See?
Uh, I'll try restarting it. Any love?
Okay. So we have at the top level we have API.
Uh, well, what do you mean by top level? This thing?
I think don't yeah, and I think well, I think it should be here, right? Like the routing should be like the part where it says API. That should be external to the API service. API service should not be aware that it's under API. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we can definitely try that. I think the challenge there might be that we want the OpenAPI docs to work. And
Oh,
how is it going to know about that if we do it the way you're
oh,
describing?
yeah, it's all in the struct. I got it. I get it.
That might be why we structured it this way. I don't even know that that's crazy, right? Like if we were to add an API v2, I don't think it would be crazy for the paths to be, you know, tied to the actual implementation. Like if this became impl API v1, we added a new impl API v2 or something.
It's fine. It was just it feels a bit more correct to me, but we have this
Yeah,
limitation and not so whatever. So we have
yeah.
API and doc and under doc. I think the Is it like, why do we even have this doc? Why not just open API.json at the root?
Sure.
And I mean, if we have API, right? Everything is API is under the actual API. So
Yep.
and I don't think Swagger is the right thing. I think like what is it, right? Maybe this is doc, right?
Yeah. API playground. I don't know.
API docs. Does that make sense? Or like API reference. Is it playground than a reference? I think it's a reference that happens to be interactive. It's just making the
That's fair.
JSON human readable.
Yep.
So maybe just
I mean, calling it Swagger is kind of like calling, I don't know, every project written React/React or something. That's just the tool you use to build it.
like calling a car a Beamer.
I don't think I'm enough of a car person to get that. What's a Beamer?
Beamer is a BMW.
Oh, I think I've heard that. Okay, rotating over to you.
Rotation accepted.
Robot Shafar.
So I will make this a group, not this a group, and then put this on here and make them tabs.
Mr. Window Manager. I love it.
And I think I can do this branch. Okay. To do. So did but we didn't. So let's look for Swagger because that's. Did we do that? No. Let's make a decision here. Uh,
Have we
API
confirmed that
docs.
the test still passed, by the way?
The test.
Like cargo test or whatever. I was just thinking if we've got silly bugs like that, it might be better to fix those before we go through the
Somehow we
to-dos.
have this. This.
Mhm. Oh, okay, so we haven't run the
Mm,
test yet because of this.
and there is a new version of Rust. There's a new edition of Rust.
Hi, that doesn't happen every day.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that means they saw some opportunity to
In your cargo toml, you have an
remove some mistakes of the past.
yes.
Good for
So if
them.
I bump this, we might break. If I don't bump this, we will never break. But that's the promise. It
Right.
there were exceptions, but
Hey, they're trying.
yeah.
People make mistakes.
So it's 2024, I believe. It's
Sweet.
maybe it's 4 or 5.
Yeah, this should just be another thing in the lock file, man. Why do we have to manage this separately from all the other dependencies?
Sure, I don't think there's such a feature.
Yeah.
So so what do you want to take a look at that actual failure here?
I guess I was
Just to check.
thinking before we go through the to-dos, making sure the tests and lints are passing. I don't really
This
care what order. It was just I had the thought that I'm not sure if we've run the tests, and I think we hadn't because of this reason.
this is strange to me. See this should be a warning. Even in the editor, it's not a warning.
Mhm.
Somewhere you see this implied by deny warnings.
Okay. Yeah, maybe this is a
Where
consequence of, didn't we do a ton of work with refactoring the flake to use that project?
with the same build environment is being applied to the shell.
Yeah, and is a consequence of that that we now have some environment variable or something that,
Rust flags.
yeah,
There you
there you
go,
go.
Jeremy. You're
And that was
a
what's the thing we're using?
Rustation
What's the thing we're
mixer.
using? The the thing that uses DRV parts slash stream to Nix, the Rust built
Rust
on top of Rain.
flags. This
Oh
is
my
where this is
gosh.
actually
Yeah. What's it called? The thing that uses DRV parts and grain?
NCI,
NCI. Nix
Nix
cargo
cargo
integration.
integration.
Right. Yeah. Okay, cool. So this is probably, yeah, that's a consequence of that change, which is we sort of broke the dev experience. Um,
Because we would never do this intentionally for the shell. If I
but
if
we put a
I'm
lot of
present.
effort into not repeating ourselves, and that was satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
uh, we may have even asked for him to make these environment variables automatically show up in the shell, right?
So this is in you're hypothesizing that this is in main and we
Yes.
didn't notice.
Well, we didn't notice because we haven't really been doing any Rust development, right? We did a ton of
Mm-hmm. So
Nix
let
work.
me just pick a struct. This is a Nix file.
Are we back to main right now?
Here's API. Yes. And
Cool.
I'll just pick a struct like landing. And I'll pub or not pub foo phantom data.
Ooh, spooky.
But it cannot be unused because this will fail first. But this won't. This doesn't mean that it's used actually. It's disallowed. Foo's a placeholder.
Sure. Thank you, Clippy, or whoever.
But foo bar. Got a placeholder.
Hmm.
Yep,
All
there it
right.
is. There it is. It's an error. Well, I could have just done this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Reload. Reloading is important, but otherwise, the whole thing is a sham. Okay. Well, yeah, we have deny warnings. We don't want deny warnings in the shell.
Yeah. So did we act? Did we ask NCI to do this?
And I don't think any of this matters. I think it's just I don't think we need this. Did we ask NCI? I'm not sure how it's set up. Let's find out how it's set up. Like what did we do with the shell? Like how did we set up the shell?
Okay. Do we have
How
a
do
new
we
mob
use?
branch for this? Shall I create
If you
one?
want, I
I
did
guess we
not
can
make
just
one.
investigate until we have a code
Yeah.
change to make. All right. DRV config.env, was that it?
Well, modules NCI, you see
Mm-hmm.
the Rust flags. Where's the shell? Search for shell. Dev shell. So NCI projects dev shell numpty dev shell default. Uh, so that says the default NCI project is the only one we have.
Mm-hmm.
The numpty dev shell for it, make a numpty dev shell for it named default. That's where we
Yep.
get our numpty dev shell from.
Yep.
And the environment variables from that, for I don't know what, from that project, right? So the drv config of the project,
Yep.
they reach the shell, and they kind of should, right? So maybe we should, like, maybe this is desired behavior, but like we need to override it and say, like, specifically, no, like, this is a thing, right? Like, this is a peculiarity. This is a this is a shell. This is a dev shell peculiarity. No, we don't want
Mm-hmm.
to deny warnings. But there's a kind of a problem with that, because Rust flags is a set of flags. So like a
Yep.
set of flags.
Yep.
And we happen to only use one, but that's just luck. If we override Rust flags in the shell, we'd be shooting ourselves in the kind of collective foot, if that's the attitude, right? That's a risky
I
move.
don't know that we'd be shooting ourselves in the foot, but we'd be creating a foot gun that we might
Creating a
then shoot
foot gun,
ourselves with later.
laying a landmine.
Yeah. And jog my memory, but I seem to recall that DR NCI did not always behave this way, and we asked them to implement this feature. Is that right?
Carry the environment.
Yeah, into the shell.
I think it was more than the environment. I think we asked for that feature, that numpty dev shell,
Mm-hmm.
that entire feature. Like, just give me a shell, that we asked for.
Okay.
Uh, so I'm still in agreement with how that works. I think environment variables, they should be passed on to the shell.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we had a whole version of code before where we were, setting things kind of in two places. And, we had Nix, so we had the ability to sort of draw, like, share the code, but it was still a mess. And it's very nice. It was very satisfying to delete that code. I remember deleting that code. But yeah, there is some like concept or something here, right? It's like some of these environment variables are not appropriate for the shell. Or
It's a
there's,
substring of that environment variable is not.
right.
That's the problem. If it was just one environment variable, but this is a substring of it.
Hmm. I mean, even if it was just one, solving that in a generic way is like kind of funky, right? I mean, like we could add to our shell hook like an unset of this environment variable, but yeah. So, anyways, I mean, we could go down the path of like remembering why we had to do this, and is there a way of doing it that doesn't
Why
bubble up as an
is
environment variable?
Why, I can easily tell you.
Mm-hmm.
When, like, we don't like warnings. We don't
Mm-hmm.
want warnings in the project. So Rust warnings are easy to deny. This and
Mm-hmm.
this is it's a flag. This is one way of passing it. But this flag, however it is passed, it just denies all warnings uh, that are have to do with compilation, linting, maybe not some other things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the why.
I
But
mean,
in the
I
dev shell,
understand that we don't like
hmm
warnings. The why that I'm asking is why is this the way to disable to turn warnings into errors?
why using an environment variable?
Or why are you using an environment variable in this context, maybe? Like, this
Because this is the
feels,
build. This is like if I build this project with Nix, that's the context in which I want warnings to be denied.
yeah. I guess what I'm saying is like, this environment variable percolates. Like, this feels like a surprisingly heavy hammer as opposed to like having some knob that affects all like Clippy incantations or a knob that affects all Clippy and cargo build incantations or something. Because like this environment variable is going to be present for like if we had like a GCC step at somewhere
You
in our
want to
build.
pass the same flag in a different through a different mechanism.
I'm wondering if there is another mechanism because that would
Yeah,
have a side effect of solving our problem.
yes. You see that it like literally looks like a command line argument flag, right?
Yes.
Because it is. It's
Yeah.
these are literal passed to
Cargo
Rust C,
or
I believe.
Rusty. Okay. Got it.
Um, but I think they're also picked up by Clippy. So maybe I'm not sure exactly how that works. Maybe
Yeah.
Clippy picks it up explicitly as well.
Yeah. Okay. So that's like one potential avenue is like, is there another way of threading this through? What other ideas do we have? Could we like maybe we can just append to the environment variable? You know, like shell hook, just add another flag at the end and maybe it'll take precedence.
And
Just basically add a hey, warnings are okay by me sort of flag.
in the shell, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't think you can. I think the only environment variable that can control this is Rust flags.
Hmm. Yeah, so I'm suggesting a tweak to that Rust flags environment variable, specifically for the shell.
How do you, how do you like if you append allow warnings?
Yeah,
So it'll end up deny warnings and then allow warnings and hoping
that
it'll
was, yeah. And hoping
second
that
will override.
it does what we want in the scenario. Although I could totally see it saying, hey, you can't have two different values for the same thing. You know, that would be a very reasonable behavior on their part.
Easy to try.
Yeah. Okay. Um, Give me a CLI incantation. Would like cargo build be the
I
one that fails?
wouldn't. Do you want to try this one?
I don't know.
Because
I
it is
mean,
via an environment variable. So my work. I would add to the shell. I would modify the shell hook.
yeah. I was just gonna do it in line here. Oh, so that didn't even fail. I need a thing that's failing, huh? Which was
You need
surprisingly
two
hard
to
to do.
fail on, yeah.
Yes, I
Well,
need to find some
that was
struct somewhere.
adding. I would create a struct instead of what I did.
Okay. Substruct.
Make it not public.
Okay.
That would might. Yeah. It doesn't need a field, so that's a warning.
Okay. Great. Wonderful. Okay. Now if I do echo rust flags, I can do something like rust flags equals rust flags. And I want allow warnings.
Yeah.
I think that might have done what we wanted. And then it has to rebuild because the cache is based on the value of this environment variable.
Yes.
Okay. So there's another approach.
Works for
Okay.
me.
Okay.
Good
We'll
thinking.
do that then. Thank
I'll
you.
be right back.
Okay. Dev shell hook. Nope. Command and either other steps. Script to run. Active text. Let's try that, I guess. Dev shell. Dev shell interactive. Yo, text equals. Yo. And enough. Script to interactive. Step. List of other steps. What are steps? Okay, very helpful.
I'm back.
All right. Uh, so dev shell doesn't have like shell hook. It does have dev shell.interactive, which certainly sounds like what we'd want. But
Script
to
to run.
run, I tried that. I went dev shells.default, which I'm pretty sure is the shell we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, .dev shell.interactive, and then I just give it some name, that text, and then a command. And it doesn't seem to do anything. If I run freeload, maybe let me make
Try
sure.
next.
Try what? Sorry.
Maybe derenv doesn't.
Next
Hmm.
develop.
Yeah. Try next develop.
Sure. Hey, you are correct, sir. Interesting. Oh, this is about interactive or not. This is not interactive because we're starting up a dev shell. Because we're running this in Durenv. That's it.
Derenv
So
runs it and does not lie about.
startup.text. There we go. Okay. Startup. And allow. Yeah, it doesn't fool the thing it's running into thinking that like standard out's a TTY or whatever. Dir env reload. This should fail. Although the fact that this succeeded is distressing too. Yeah, okay, there we go.
There.
Weird. So when I ran dir env allow, I guess it still had the cached. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
cached dev shell. Okay, cool. Great. I think we're in business. We'll do something like export, whatever the rest flags we had was. This thing, right?
Except that it needs a
Cargo,
different name.
rest flags. Yes, thank you. Cargo. Yeah, so this is like rust allow warnings.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. You want to put a comment here, or what do you
No,
think?
I don't think a comment's necessary.
Great. Yeah, hopefully the name is self-explanatory.
But maybe it should not be here. Maybe it should be near where we deny warnings.
Good thought. I can buy that. Pick up what you're putting down.
It's free.
Can't go there. Can go here. So they can't be right next to each other. But you can get them close.
Yes, please make it stop.
Dev shell's default dev shell dot packages. Darn it. Okay. Oh, no, no, no. Need my editor to handle that operation for me. And this all goes away. There we go. Yes. Okay. Let's show you the right place. We happy?
Yes.
Okay. So here's our diff. We just refactored this and added in extra.
Ship
So,
it.
uh,
It was mixed flake check.
good.
Okay.
I will just commit this thing, and I'll call this allow warnings. Dev shell allow warnings. Boom. And we'll call this. Next focus. Taking your sweet time to do something there. All right. What is this? A chore? Is that what this is?
Sure.
Okay, sure. Allow warnings. You want to elaborate on that, or a second?
This is enough for me.
Git push origin. And if you want to be human CI on that, I'll hand it off to you.
Timer. Finish. Finish. After this, I will do git switch main and git merge that and push and then git push delete origin that and git merge delete that and switch to our open API branch and start. I have completion for that. This
Oh, yeah, I guess
succeed.
that didn't change anything, right? We don't test the dev shell.
Good. Good enough for me.
Yep, yep. Yippee, yippee.
Use this command. I'll start and rebase. Hmm. Yep, that's the rebase. That's the stash pop.
Okay.
Here and reload. Now we should have a warning again, right? Somewhere. I need to restart this editor. No? Well, it's build, building the macro grapes. Maybe. Do I need to restart it? Is there a log of this? That's mixed. Very interesting. At the bottom, maybe? Hmm. I'm not getting the log that I want. Let's do this start. Oh, LSP restart did not. I think it's hung up on this. Let me. Let's do restart this again. I quit it entirely. API main. Is this going better? Huh. That seems to have completed now. But I have no diagnostics. My doing something wrong.
What is the thing you're trying to do?
Open up trouble. Trouble diagnostics toggle. And it says I've no look. Is this magically disappear like if I do cargo test? There are no warnings.
Are you expecting warnings?
We had a warning. That's how we had a warning that got escalated into an error.
Oh, right.
That and we have JSON. Oh, we have actually. Remember that we
Yes.
because we moved the path of where the JSON is. I want to see a warning now. We did not expect to like for the warning to disappear altogether. What about next flag check?
What is the command you're running to try to find the warning?
Like cargo tests.
Which now is doing a lot of warnings. A variable
Mm-hmm.
change we made.
Yes. Oh, that's a funct. Funct check. What else can I do? I think we should fix that JSON test problem. This one? API.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Should that? Wait, is that where it should be? I don't think so. I think OpenAPI.json documents multiple versions, right, of the API.
It certainly could. We probably could do it either way, but I'm fine with putting it all in one and just changing the stuff to match.
This seems right to me.
Okie dokie.
Such a small program.
Yet so much compiling. Yeah.
I have rotated.
Okay. Start. So remote that fly. What the? So we're back to the opening. Right? No, start. And I guess I should have given myself some minutes. Right. Okay. So current test is passing or not?
My next flag check is still compiling.
Okay.
With this
Well,
much processing time, you'd think it would actually write the program for you. Rust, Rust is not being smart about the caching here because it doesn't. It treats it as just a string. It doesn't say,
conceptually, yeah. What features are turned on or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be slick. Yeah, there we go. Failing test. Way to go. Yeah, and we broke something with error messages, which I think we saw the comment to that code. So that seems like a reasonable thing to work on.
Mm-hmm. Let's do it.
Okay, I don't see comment to that code, but I find it entirely believable that we did break this. Uh, is there any OpenAPI on the thing? Run, what is it? Util, and is this thing
Right.
even
It doesn't
saved?
even mention that error.
Yeah,
I think, but it is used somewhere. Otherwise, it would have been unused.
it did not
I think.
mention the error. I think it knows about the status codes though. So there's two different ways to get a 400. One way to get a 500 plus a 200. Oh, sorry, no, a 400, a 500, and a 404. And I think we do see that in the docs. It's just there's no human readable text associated with it. Compiling. Oh, you can do it. Really? Where did we decide to put this? Was it just slash
API docs, perhaps.
API dev docs? Okay. Oh my god. And the point I was trying to make is we do in fact see these status codes here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not crazy to imagine that like this 404 right here doesn't have that human readable text.
Sure. What's the test doing? Is that what it's doing? The body?
That's a good point. Maybe this doesn't have the effect we want. Like if I move that down, as the tests start passing. Is that possible?
You know,
Depending.
that is for it. It does set the display of the error variant. That's what it does, and that's not an Open API thing. It's a this error
Right. And what I'm wondering is, can this thing get tripped up? Like depending on how this thing and this
order.
thing are implemented, it's possible that this doesn't have the desired effect when you've got one of these things,
Hmm. Well,
specifically right underneath it.
I don't think so. I think they eventually end up with two implementations. The enum ends up with two implementations.
Okay, well, why is that error string not showing?
Um, I think what happens is that it's the behavior of POM Open API is that it does not use the display of errors for the body.
Mm-hmm. Yep, there it is. So that had no effect, no surprise. So yeah, to talk about one thing at a time, we don't really care about OpenAPI right now. We just want the test to pass. And what did we do that
It's
caused?
I think the change. If you look at the change, that we have had this. I don't think we had an error, a landed error enum.
Oh, we added this in. Okay.
Yeah, I think we had more explicit. I think we just created an error response
Uh,
Did we?
this is me diffing with origin. I searched for a moment ago. Oh my god. Pull request not shown. Yeah, this is the code before. Hmm.
Or
Oh
maybe
man,
we
I
explicitly used the display of the error.
really screwed things up here. Yikes.
How'd you even do that?
I'm thinking less.
Git clean would do the trick.
Yeah, that would have been better. Okay, so I will rotate over to you. Um, uh,
You look at the diff. Which error? Which variant is that?
uh, you are not found.
You don't know. There you go.
Nope. As response. Nice.
Yeah.
How do our responses work?
Now we just, how do I see where this is used?
Okay.
References.
Nice.
Result landed error. That's the return. That's part of the return type.
Yep.
Landing 4PR try into.
Yep.
This is a 4PR error. So that's, I don't think we're in the right place. I think this is like too late.
This is too late.
Yeah, I think, well, stepping into 4PR is too late. I think here is where we say, this is a handler, handles this path with this method, and here is the poem result, and here is the landed error.
Yeah.
There's nothing beyond that that handles the error case. I think that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we need to know how like
It's a
when it
poem.
gets this landed error,
Mm-hmm.
generates a response for the client.
Yeah. Um, um, Is it? Yeah, I suppose. I suppose it's a poem thing, and OpenAPI doesn't really care about that,
Yeah.
or wouldn't change that aspect of poem. So here's the README. How do you suppose we find something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because if we're not taking into account the API, OpenAPI side of things, we might just find docs that tell us to do the thing we used to do, which was implement a response handler. But at the point that you're implementing a response handler, you're doing things like at too low a level for OpenAPI to then like produce a useful API spec.
Well,
There has to be some higher level thing, and we might find that in like OpenAPI examples. Like if we can find an OpenAPI example that defines, yeah, this is an open API, but let's see how this thing works. Okay, so I'm
so here's
skeptical.
mm,
Oh, well, maybe not. I don't know what that is. Is that this error?
this error,
Got it.
and there's the mess. This is using, like, referring to the field to right. This is about the implementation of display for that
Mm-hmm.
for this struct, and it says, well, the contents of that field will be the string returned from display
Got it.
from toString. Display has to the toString method. And this is used. Custom error is used here. So what?
Yeah.
Just errors out
Yeah.
statically.
I think this example is just operating at the wrong level to be able to integrate with their open API stuff.
You think? Because this is not even a special type. This is just implements error and display.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this gives. It's not even a poem thing. So if you give it, you see that you give it an if the handler returns an error, like, so what do you think where do you think the message will be displayed? Do you think the message will be the body? Like, what makes you think here that the message is the body?
Error custom error message flow. Yeah, I have no idea. Can't tell.
You want us to run this example and see whether
That could be informative.
so this is how the heck do I step out of this? Here. Poem web poem. Step up here, do this. Do I have that already? Poem web poem. Pull it a little bit. And then step into examples. Poem, custom error. And hope that I can do what? Cargo run. Of course I don't have cargo. So what's the next shell, next packages? Cargo packages. Oh, actually this is it. Cargo run. Socket.
Mm-hmm.
Socket?
Yep.
What is that? Can I use that here?
No,
What socket is I when I see socket, I expect to see a path, not an IP.
I agree.
So do you think it's a lie?
I don't
Let's look at
understand
the
what to
code.
say. I mean, I
Um, it's just a TCP listener. There's some kind of a bug with the. Let's edit. No, I mean DuckDuckGo. It's not what I mean. Uh, what is okay? So localhost. Extension refused. 3,000. I think it might not have permission to do this. No, it should. Did I kill it? I killed it. Sorry, I killed it. Customer. It is in the body, isn't it? It is in the body. It's in the body. Okay. So, huh. And yeah. So there's some kind of difference that is caused by a Palm Open API here.
yeah. Yep.
Because there's very little difference, as far as I can tell. Uh, this over here.
I
Oh,
think it would be useful to try to
my
look at the
timer got
Chrome OpenAPI examples.
my timer got
With
stuck. That's why I didn't rotate.
all right, it's like I can't remember, but I feel like they might have fairly extensive ones, and if we can find one that has an error, GitHub,
Poem web.
thank
Yeah.
you. OpenAPI, is
The
that it?
examples, no, the examples are
Yeah,
in
it's all
the
in one project, isn't it? And examples, OpenAPI, error. No, nothing really. Error.
But let's first make sure that we know what our test actually tests for.
Make sure we know what our. Oh, okay, sure. A failing test is this thing right here.
Why is it compiling again? Do you have
Excellent
two
question.
shells open, perhaps?
I do.
Oh, the editor might need to be restarted because if it has like
Uh,
the old Rust flags,
and right, unlike Nix, it doesn't. We don't have multiple caches, or it's not like everything ever is cached. It's the cache keeps getting clobbered.
mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. It's this test PR. Excuse me. PR not found. is asserting on,
The body.
yeah, it doesn't use the word body, but I can't imagine what else that would be.
See, definition of the function. Oh,
Yeah,
waiting
waiting
for
for
that.
my editor to do its thing. But anyways, we're in agreement. So I'd be inclined to look for an error example in here.
Yeah.
Examples, OpenAPI, or error maybe. Big grep error. Okay, so here's a few. Custom payload, or question mark. Oh, this is an into response right here. I thought we couldn't do because we wanted to
Body
tell
air to
OpenAPI.
string.
Yeah, I just find this weird because it's like, hmm, how is OpenAPI can know that this is a possible return status?
Who's? You think this is an open API
Well, I was
example?
thinking we were looking at the OpenAPI examples, so sort of
We
assumed.
are we though? Is this BCS payload? This is in an open API example?
Yep. The directory is home examples
Okay.
OpenAPI, and then within there, we're in custom payload circ OpenAPI. API? Yeah, it
Well,
really doesn't. Oh, but API response.
if you look at BCS, this is an at the type.
Struct BCS.
There may be some. Well, I don't see that derive. So I think it's a manual implementation, and then somewhere, somewhere else perhaps.
Mhm. Okay. Uh, yeah, so, I mean, we, the diff you showed us, like we had code that looked a lot like this, right? With into response and calling error.toString explicitly.
Yes, there was, and there was a two string somewhere.
Yeah. And was that as part of an into response string implementation?
Maybe
ToString, ToString, ToString. Nope.
Rust is a snake case.
Thank you. ToString. This is impl home response error for landed error, whereas this is a response for, okay.
That we have deleted. Did we delete that or we commented out?
Looks like we commented it out, so is the solution just to add it back?
I I guess, but you, you know that example. I mean, we could probably solve it this way, but that example didn't. I mean, it must have. Did we just miss it? Can you
Did
show
we
the
miss
example
what?
that the the poem example that
This
that is a
PCS
custom
thing?
error. No, the custom error example.
Oh. Where was that?
Examples, poem, custom error.
Yeah, thank you.
There. There is impl response error for custom error. But there's oh yeah, but there's still no it, in impl response error for custom error here. There's nothing about strings,
Right. You are correct.
and what do we do?
Well, the thing we could add back would be to implement response error, which would involve implementing status, just like they do over here. Then we would probably also want to implement this. At least we had this code written, this as response as well.
Maybe simply it's not in the implementation itself, but simply having an implementation triggers the calling of toString. Does that make sense?
Oh, perhaps. Yeah, I don't know.
That would be my guess.
Good. Looks like my timer's also switched. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm fading. I'm barely awake, so I think I need to
That's okay.
call it a night. Um, sorry to leave it in this state though.
That's okay. Fine. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Be well.
Bye.